My name is John Whitaker, and I'm 72 years old. I built my life on patience, integrity, and the belief that if you raise your child right, they'll carry your legacy, not erase it. For 50 years, I worked as a structural engineer, restored the family home with my bare hands, and paid off every debt before it was due. But somehow, in the eyes of my only son Calder, I'm nothing more than a stubborn old man taking up space. He's everything I'm not. Ruthless, charming, calculated, and I used to admire that. Now I lie awake wondering when exactly he stopped seeing me as his father and started seeing me as a liability. I've always been the one who stayed quiet, the one who forgave too easily, who believed blood meant loyalty. But last week, my own son changed the locks on the house I built, and that was his first mistake. The brass key didn't turn. I twisted harder. Nothing. Click. Deadbolt. Wrong lock. I tried the second key, then the third. Still nothing. I stood on the porch with a bag of groceries in my hand, eggs, milk, bread. A quiet evening in Boulder, Colorado, pines whispering behind the backyard fence, snow melting off the gutters. Then the door opened. Calder, shirt untucked, hair damp, whiskey in hand, like he'd been waiting. "You're back early," he said. Calm, too calm. I stared at him. "You changed the locks?" He shrugged. "It's time you found your own place." No smile, no apology, just that line. I took a breath. Cold air burned my throat. "You asked me to live here after your mother died. You said—" I know what I said, and I know what I'm saying now. I felt the weight of 50 years pressing into my ribs. "So that's it. No conversation, just out?" "It's not personal," he said, stepping aside like a doorman. "It's just time." The eggs hit the concrete. Yolks bled across the steps like something gutted. He didn't flinch. "Who's behind this?" I asked. "No one. You've just been here long enough." He closed the door before I could answer. Lock engaged. Final. There's a sound silence makes when it becomes a weapon. It rings in your bones. I stood there long enough for my shadow to fade with the setting sun. Then I turned, walked down the porch steps, slower than I should have. Across the street, a light blinked on. A young woman I didn't recognize, 20s, oversized hoodie, black boots, walked toward me. She looked around like she was being watched, then slipped a white envelope into my hand without a word. She crossed the road and disappeared into her building. Door shut, light out. I opened the envelope under the flickering porch lamp of a stranger's home. Inside was a copy of a quitclaim deed. It had my name on it, notarized, stamped, dated 3 months ago. I never signed it. My hands shook. The air wasn't cold anymore. It was electric. The signature was mine. Too perfect. I looked up at the window. Calder stood there, just for a second, arms crossed. Watching. They say the people closest to you know exactly where to stab. If I never signed this, who the hell did? The motel smelled like bleach and old secrets. I dropped the envelope on the desk. Light flickered above me like it couldn't decide if it should help or betray me. The copy of the quitclaim deed lay flat, taunting, notarized, stamped, initialed, signature, mine. But I never touched that document in my life. My breath fogged the window. Snow hit the glass like fingernails. My reflection looked unfamiliar, older, heavier, hunted. I called Margaret Chen, my old attorney. Voicemail. Second ring. She picked up. "John." Groggy. Hesitant. "I have a question," I said. "Why is there a deed transferring my house to Calder with my signature on it?" Silence. Then, "You gave him power of attorney last year." My spine snapped upright. "No, I didn't." "You signed it during that hospital visit, after your fall. He said it was for temporary health decisions." I slammed my hand on the desk. "That's not power of attorney for property, Margaret. That's theft in a suit and tie." She exhaled. "John, you didn't read what you signed." "Of course I didn't. I trusted my son. You don't think twice when your own blood brings you a pen." "You know what they say," I muttered. "The wolf never needs to knock when it wears your last name." Cut. I needed proof. Clara, retired notary. She notarized my will. She kept records. If anyone could help me trace this forged document, it was her. I drove across town. Fast. No music. Just the pulse in my throat. Her porch light was off. Odd. She never left it off. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Door cracked open. Clara stood there, robe, barefoot, pale. "John," she whispered. "They were here." My heart dropped. "Who?" "Two men, one with a folder, said they were from the county clerk's office." She pulled me inside. Living room trashed, drawers open, filing cabinet gutted. "I keep backups," she said, pressing a USB into my palm. "Hidden in the freezer, always keep records cold. Digital fingerprints never melt." I almost smiled. "You're a paranoid genius." She looked at me, dead serious. "They're watching you. Don't trust anyone, especially not Calder." She paused. "And not Margaret." "What?" "She notarized something last month under a different name. I checked the registry. The name she used doesn't exist. It's not an alias. It's fiction." The tension wasn't in my shoulders anymore. It lived behind my eyes. I left her house through the back. Streets darker than usual. Car headlights moved slow. Too slow, like they were scanning. I got back to the motel, locked the door, taped the peephole, plugged in Clara's USB. One folder, labeled JWH Override. Inside, an audio file. I clicked Calder's voice, laughing. I told him it was just for medical stuff. He signs anything. It's almost too easy. My stomach turned to stone. My fingers curled tight. Around the mouse. They say betrayal stings most when it wears your DNA. Cut. 10 minutes later, my car alarm shrieked. I looked through the blinds. Nothing. Walked outside slowly. Gravel crunched. Wind howled. A single sheet of paper was tucked under my windshield. Typed. No signature. Stop digging. Or we finish what time hasn't. I stared at the note, then looked up. Second floor motel window. Curtain swayed. No wind. Someone was watching. I walked back in. No footsteps behind me, but my skin crawled like they were already in the room. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I let it ring. It rang again. And again. The walls felt thinner by the second. Each ring was a scream. Clara's voice echoed in my head. People don't just want what you have. They want to make sure you never had it to begin with. I stared at my name on that deed, typed in black ink, bold and dead. They didn't just steal my house. They erased me. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Not with the threat curled around my neck like a noose. Not with my son's voice still looping in my ears. He signs anything. Sunrise didn't feel like light. It felt like exposure. I needed help. Not from lawyers. Not from Clara. Not anymore. I needed someone who didn't owe Calder a damn thing. I called her. "Inez Kravitz." She answered on the second ring. "You're the one with the forged deed?" Her voice clipped, focused. "Yes. You're not the only one. Meet me in an hour. Bring everything." She hung up. Cut. Corner booth. Diner on 8th and Colfax. Greasy windows. Strong coffee. Waitress too tired to care who's watching. Inez slid into the seat across from me. Leather jacket, chipped nails, eyes like storm glass. Early 30s. Sharp energy. "You've been erased," she said, flipping through the files I brought. "It's not just a forgery. It's a strategy." I stared. "Meaning?" "Your name disappears. Legally, financially, medically. You'll vanish without dying. It's called a grayout. That's not legal. Nothing illegal if no one catches it in time." She pulled out her tablet, showed me a network map, names, arrows, dollar signs. Center node, Calder Whitaker. "Your son is working with a shell corp. Ashridge Group. Fake board. Real money. They target elder assets. Steal power of attorney. Forge signatures. Drain accounts. And Margaret. She's not just a lawyer. She's their closer." Cut. The diner bell jingled. A man in a suit entered. Didn't order, didn't sit, just watched. Inez stiffened. "We're being followed." I looked back. He was gone. We left through the kitchen. Cut. Back alley. Cold wind. Dumpster fumes. Inez pressed a thumb drive into my palm. "Everything I've found. Names, wire routes, partial bank trail. It's not enough yet, but it will be." Her voice dropped. "There's a link to an investment account under your name. Dormant. It only unlocks if you're declared legally incapacitated or dead." I froze. So this was never just about the house. "No," she said. "It's about something much bigger." She paused. "Your wife left it." 20 years ago. My chest cracked open. She never told me. She told Clara. That moment stretched, slow, like a camera pushing in on a man realizing his marriage held secrets even death didn't unlock. Cut. That night, I waited in my motel room. Inez was supposed to call. She didn't. I texted. Nothing. I called twice. Voicemail. My gut twisted. I drove to her apartment. Downtown. Gray brick. 4th floor. Door was cracked open. I stepped inside. Lights off. Silence thick as oil. Inez. My voice barely broke the stillness. Glass shattered under my boot. She was on the floor. Face bloodied. Bruised ribs. Laptop smashed. She groaned but couldn't speak. Her eyes met mine. Wild. Urgent. Terrified. She pointed to the desk. Underneath it, taped to the bottom, was a post-it note. Locker number. Address. Storage facility 2 miles out. Sirens wailed. Someone had called it in. I vanished before they arrived. Cut. Storage unit smelled like rust and old sweat. I used the code. Door rolled open. Inside, corkboard covered in photos. Threads connecting names. Me. Calder. Margaret. Middle of the board. My face. Underneath, typed in red block letters. Target A. I backed away. Pulse spiking. My photo wasn't printed. It was pulled from my driver's license. A folder sat on a folding table. I opened it. List of assets. Timeline. Trigger date. March 5th. Tomorrow. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. I killed the lights. Flattened against the back wall. Shadows past the door. Stopped. Paused. A voice whispered, "You were early." My breath locked in my throat. They left. I didn't move for 5 minutes. Then I gathered the files. Photos. Map. Everything. Because this wasn't a con anymore. It was a hit. They planned this down to the day I'd be gone. Morning hit hard. Sleep had become a myth. My nerves were stripped wire. I made 3 copies of the documents. 1 stashed in a bank drop box under a fake name. 1 mailed to Clara's P.O. box. 1 strapped to my chest. Insurance. Trust is a thing you bury with the person who last earned it. I drove to the far end of town, industrial zone, where the roads are cracked and the air tastes like metal. Clara's old friend had a place, a hardware store, still took cash, still hated cameras. I bought a burner phone, gloves, a roll of duct tape, and a crowbar. Cut. Back in the car, I reconnected to my home's security system. I still had the login. They forgot to change the router password. People always forget the small locks. Live feed flickered onto my phone. Calder was there, in the living room, dressed too clean, too polished. Not alone. Margaret sat beside him. And a third man. Unknown. Gray suit. Thin mouth. No wedding ring. Corporate. Predatory. Zoomed in on a folder. On the table. Transfer authority. Jonathan Whitaker account. I paused the feed. Screenshot. Inez was right. Cut. I drove to her hospital, room 408. ICU, pale tubes, machine breaths. She looked worse, but awake. I pulled the curtain, leaned close. They're transferring everything tomorrow. The investment account, the house, my name. She blinked twice. I pulled the corkboard photo of the gray suit man from my coat. Do you recognize him? A slow nod. Her hand trembled. Wrote 2 words. Derek Tallman. My blood iced. I'd heard that name. A lawsuit. Elder abuse. Class action. Settled quietly. Record sealed. How the hell did Calder find him? Inez slipped me a crumpled post-it. Password scrawled. Margaret's file room, she whispered. Hidden panel, lower drawer. Get it before they do. Cut. Night. Margaret's law office. I broke in through the back using the crowbar. Old security. No motion sensors. Her office reeked of lavender and deception. I moved fast. Desk drawers first. Tax returns, insurance, petty invoices. Then I found it. Back cabinet. Loose panel pull. Inside. Thick red file. Guardianship petition. Whitaker, John. Filed. Pending. Tomorrow's hearing. They were going to have me declared mentally unfit. Legally incapacitated. Calder would take control of everything. All they needed was 1 doctor's statement, and no show from me. I'd vanish on paper. Cut. I scanned the file, photocopies of my signature, altered medical forms, notes from a psychologist I never met. I snapped every page with my phone, then paused. 1 more file. thicker, older. Titled Miriam Whittaker, Codicil B, My Wife. This wasn't a guardianship file. This was a second will. It rewrote everything. If I were ever deemed legally unfit and my original will invalidated, Miriam's codicil granted sole control to Calder. Unless, her wording clear, John acted in self-defense. It was dated 6 months before she died. She knew. She saw this coming. Cut. Sirens outside, 2 blocks away. I stuffed everything back, wiped prints. Before I left, I yanked the oil heater cable from the socket. It sparked, tossed the coffee pot onto the floor. Ceramic shattered, lit a match. The old carpet caught fast. Smoke bloomed. Fire alarms screamed. I stepped out the back as red lights painted the alley. The past was burning behind me. I walked into the smoke with ash in my throat and a file in my coat. Some things have to be destroyed before they can be taken. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. Text only. You just made it worse. My pulse spiked because they weren't talking about the fire. My son sold me, and they're coming to collect the rest. Midnight. Parking garage under a luxury condo downtown. Concrete dripping with condensation. My breath hung in the air like a warning. I waited in the shadows. A black town car pulled in. Calder stepped out. Margaret followed. Then him. Derek Tallman. Designer coat. Dead eyes. They didn't see me. I hit record. They walked into the elevator, laughing. Calder said something about finalizing the transfer and scrubbing the digital trail. I mouthed the words, burned them into memory. Cut. Morning. I visited Inez again. She scribbled names, bank branches, routing numbers, initials. I matched them to Clara's USB data. All the paths pointed to one place, Ashridge Holdings, a shell company laundering stolen elder assets through layered investment portfolios. I called a contact, old friend, ex-banker turned private auditor. Is this even real? I asked. He laughed once. Real as cancer. They hide the accounts behind guardianship transfers. If no one's watching, the money just walks away. He paused. You got evidence? I've got a matchbook soaked in gasoline. Then you better strike before they do. Cut. That night, I broke into Margaret's private firm building, again. This time, I came prepared. A duffel bag, fire gel, compressed air, prepped to erase every trace of their internal paper trail. But something changed. New cameras, new locks. They knew I'd been here before. I moved fast, ducked below sightlines, slipped into the mailroom. From there, crawled through the HVC access into the legal archives. Time, 12:11 a.m. I snapped open the files they hadn't moved yet. More wills, more guardianship papers, all with altered dates, signatures replicated, doctor's reports faked. I found mine again, labeled inactive. Someone tried to bury it after Inez got hurt. I planted a flash drive with a kill script. When triggered, it would send copies of all the data to 3 reporters, a legal ethics board, and Inez's podcast backup email. Insurance again. You don't go to war without rigging the exits. I stepped out just as alarms started whining. Someone tripped the outer door. I ran. 3rd floor stairwell. Down. Boots on metal. Heart pounding. They were coming up. I dove into the trash compactor hallway, slipped behind a cleaning cart, and held my breath. 2 men passed, one with a taser, the other with a photo of me. Calder. He put a bounty on his father. Cut. Outside. I climbed into a taxi before they saw. Gave the driver an address I hadn't said in years. My wife's grave. The place no one thought I'd go. Because it wasn't about mourning. It was about unlocking the next step. Miriam kept a safety deposit box in a tiny credit union nearby. I still remembered the code. She never changed it. Inside, a handwritten letter. To me. If you're reading this, it means what we feared came true. Calder's not who he was. I saw things. Heard things. He's planning something with Margaret. If they ever try to take everything, use the file marked Burn Notice. The envelope also held a second key. For an off-site vault, Clara's name on the back. They left me breadcrumbs. They just never thought I'd follow them. Cut. I set up the final play from a hotel room in Thornton. Neutral ground. No history. I scheduled an email blast. Time to release every file, every document, every audio clip at noon tomorrow, including Calder's laugh from Clara's USB. including the guardianship scam, including Margaret's Shell Corp ties. I called a media contact, another insurance policy, one whisper of suppression, and he'd go live with it on 5 national outlets. I stared at my reflection in the hotel mirror. Old man, bloodshot eyes, steady hands. They wanted a ghost. I said to no one. I'll give them a reckoning. They weren't just taking my life. They were rewriting it. But not anymore. If they need me, declared unfit to take it, I'll show them exactly how dangerous I can be. The morning smelled like betrayal, but it was clean, crisp, cold air like glass. I stood across the street from my old house, Calder's house now, on paper. It looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had finally outgrown it. A white tent had been set up in the backyard, chairs arranged in rows. Fundraiser for the Ashridge Foundation, the banner read. That's what they were calling it. A fundraiser, but it was a laundering party. Inside, they'd sign the final documents, transfer the dormant accounts, execute the guardianship on paper, and bury me legally alive, all tied up in a neat bow. Cut. I wore a service jacket, cargo pants, clipboard under one arm. The badge I printed said, Security Vendor. No one asked questions. People never question uniforms if you walk fast enough. I entered through the side gate. Inside the kitchen, staff moved like clockwork. Hors d'oeuvres on silver trays. Polished wine glasses. No one noticed me plant the signal repeater. Under the dining table. No one noticed the USB stick slipped into the back of the media system. By the time Calder stepped up to the microphone in the great room, every TV screen, projector, and phone connected to the house network was mine. Cut. He wore a navy suit, smiling like a politician. Margaret beside him. Derek Tallman leaned on the fireplace, hands folded like a vulture. Before we begin, Calder said, a word about legacy. He didn't get another, because the TV behind him flickered. My face appeared on the screen. I stared into the camera, calm, direct. My name is John Whitaker. I am not legally incapacitated. I am not dead, and I did not give my son permission to take my life apart. Gasps. Phones buzzed. One by one, guests looked down. Emails arrived. Links. Evidence. Audio files played. Calder laughing. Margaret forging. Derek arranging. Documents scrolled across every screen. The guardianship order. The codicil. The second will. Someone dropped their wine glass. Margaret lunged for the media console. Too late. I stepped out of the hallway and into the room. Game's over, I said. The locks have changed. Calder froze. Face drained. You can't be here, he muttered. I built this place, and I just took it back. Police sirens outside. Red and blue reflected in the windows like blood on ice. Margaret tried to run. Officers tackled her by the pool. Derek disappeared. Cowards exit. But the arrest warrant was already signed. Calder didn't fight. He just sat down. As they cuffed him, I leaned close. You wanted power, I said. But you forgot the one thing they never taught you in law school. Inheritance isn't taken. It's earned. Cut. Weeks passed. I watched the trials unfold from a distance. No more headlines, no interviews, just quiet. I visited Inez. She was recovering, stronger. She smiled when I handed her the final transfer docs, her name now on the podcast. Her voice restored. I sent Clara a note. No words, just a photo of the old family house, empty. Then I changed my number. Cut. 1 month later, I walked up to the house again. Not Calder's anymore. Not mine either. It had been sold. I didn't ring the bell, just stood at the steps looking at the door. They had changed the lock. Rightfully so, because I wasn't coming back. I had no interest in ghosts. My future wasn't behind that door. It was in the silence I now carried like armor. They tried to erase me. Instead, they taught me how to write the final page myself. I slipped one key into my pocket, one I'd made 2 weeks ago, for my new place. Not grand, not old, but mine. Because sometimes survival isn't just staying alive, it's reclaiming your name. Letter by letter, truth by truth. I turned from the house and didn't look back. I changed the locks, this time for me.